Welcome to Weekending. The pandemic has changed the world of parenting. There is anxiety. Child rearing and education is a social job. As the saying goes, it takes a village to raise a child. Sadly, the pandemic spells raising a child in isolation. It's made parents grateful for teachers. No one knows what will happen in the next 3, 6 or 9 months. So we turn to experts to figure out how to raise them right. For ease, we have divided this conversation into 3 parts: how to raise a 2 to 7-year-old, a 7 to 12-year-old, and a 13 to 18-year-old. Let's meet our panelists. Priyanka Chopra Arora. She's a full-time mom of a 5-year-old and a 12-year-old. We have with us Nupur Dhingra Paiva. She is a child and adolescent psychotherapist. Dr. Amit Sen. He is a child and adolescent psychiatrist. Thank you so much for joining us. Priyanka, let's begin with you. Do focus on the key issues that you are facing with your 5-year-old.
Well, I think the most important thing that I'm facing is that they are not able to go outside and play their sports. I have a boy and he's very, very active, so he's been constrained to the house, which has made him very anxious, and of course there's a lot of screen time, and which is also affecting his brain. His focus is, it's more on gadgets, and I think it's really affecting his brain.
All right, I do agree with you, because I know there are children who are 5 or 6 years old who used to watch 2 hours of TV a week, and now that number has gone up to 20 hours a week. Dr. Sen, do you think it's going to have a long-term impact on the brains of these children who are suddenly exposed to so much screen time?
Well, yes, in fact, it's a big cause for worry, because if you look at the research even before the COVID crisis, there was a lot of concern about how screen time was increasing, and this is right across the world. Most of this research has come from from America, from US, Canada, from Korea and Japan, and they have figured that kids who watch or are in front of the screen for more than, let's say, 2 to 3 hours in a day can have a detrimental effect on various facets of their cognition, from attention concentration to their ability to control their emotions and temper and impulses, their ability to stick to a task, managing relationships, understanding the nuances of social interactions. It definitely affects their academic learning and scores. So there is a clear relationship between the number of hours a child spends in front of the screen and the kind of cognitive or education development or even social development they have. However, I mean, I'm sure all of us agree that in today's times, the screen is a must, because all our connections with the world outside is through the screen, whether it is to do with education or entertainment, or even the digital parties and get-togethers that young people are having. So you're in a fix as a parent, as an educator, as an expert even, to decide where to draw the line and say that, hey, this is enough.
Nupur, what is your advice? I'm sure you see a lot of young children as well who come to you, or parents within the age group of 2 to 7. What do you think are the key concerns? Lots of screen time. What do you think parents can actually do to change the temper tantrums and the mood swings that comes with this territory?
Ambika, I think every parent with a child between 2 and 7 knows that when they've been watching too much of any kind of screen, that has an impact on their mood. And actually, you have a very crabby child once that screen is switched off. And 2 to 7-year-olds, luckily, are still in that zone where their own imagination is readily available to them at any point, and imaginary play, whether it's with figures and or creating spaces like a tent under the dining table, are still activities that they find interesting. It's while screens can't be avoided entirely, there are ways of putting boundaries around them so that it's time limited. because otherwise that meltdown and tantrum throwing is actually very exhausting for both parent and child.
So children do have schools online which are for about 2 to 3 hours. How much TV time do you think is okay for a 2 to 7-year-old and then for a 7 to 12-year-old?
All right. See, it's very difficult to put a time limit, honestly, because again, I agree with Nupur that, one can try and create as many opportunities at home as possible for children who are between 2 to 7 or 7 to 12 to be able to meaningfully engage with activities, interactions, which do not need the screen. However, having said that, I also believe that a lot of what our children are missing out on is outside the home, and our only connection with those spaces, whether again it is for a 7 to 12-year-old meeting up with some friends who they can't meet in real spaces, in physical spaces, or it is about schooling, it is about entertainment, or learning a hobby, let's say learning the guitar or learning karate. All this is happening on screen. So you cannot, sort of put your foot down and say this is the limit and we as experts know it, because we actually don't know the consequences of so many hours of screen. Like I was saying, research shows that on an average, children should not be in front of screens for more than 2 to 3 hours in a day. It's gone way past that. But what impact it will have, only time will tell.
Nupur, what do you tell your clients who have children between 2 to 7? Do you prescribe 1 hour of TV, of half an hour of TV? What do you tell them?
Ambika, firstly, between 2 and 7, the range of development is so huge that there, of course, can't be a one-size-fits-all situation. I can tell you that what I have been prescribing everywhere is pillow fights more than anything else, because the pent-up emotional, just everything that's pent up in children's bodies, like Dr. Sen just said, what they're missing is the outdoor spaces. So when you've got 2 to 7-year-olds, physical movement is actually a really great antidote. And since we can't control the amount of screen time they're going to have, whether it's school or whether it's entertainment or talking to grandparents or friends, the antidote really is moving. And so my prescription has been pillow fights in the family, where you don't break your bedroom and your living room, but you also don't end up all squashed up and inhibited.
So Priyanka, you know how to entertain your 5-year-old, lots more pillow fights.
Yes, I have, yeah.
Priyanka, if you could take us through the issues you're facing with your 12-year-old.
Well, I think the 12-year-olds are a little better off, because I think they know how to socialize on the phone or on their laptops. Of course, the screen time is an issue, but still they are keeping themselves busy. They have much more homework from the schools, so school is keeping them busy. So, half of their day goes off very well. But I think it's the younger ones who are taking the brunt, because they are the ones who have enough time on hand and they really don't know what to do with it. And we as parents are trying to do as much we can. But how much can you play a board game? How much can you sit down with the child? You do it for an hour or two, but you have the entire day. So it gets very, very difficult to keep them occupied. But I think, the 12-year-olds are still, I feel, in a better space than the younger ones.
Nupur, do you have parents who come with issues for kids between the age of 7 to 12?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got parents with children and their issues across the age range. I do just want to respond a bit to Priyanka, where 12-year-olds are certainly better at handling things from what it looks like on the outside. Unfortunately, like Dr. Sen mentioned, the losses that they are going through are really of community and peers, and that actually, they are really suffering on the inside. So yes, school, and now it's, of course, exam season has started. Homework, all of that, and maybe even some online activities can fill that gap to some extent. But 12-year-olds are actually really suffering quite silently on the inside.
Socially, of course, they're not being able to meet their friends and Of course, that's there. But I mean, still, I think, I mean, it's not as bad as the younger ones.
Dr.
Yeah,
Sen, medically
Right.
speaking,
So
what would you advise
yeah.
to these children who are suffering silently, you know, who are missing going out?
Yeah,
What
yeah.
advice
So
would you have for the parents?
Yeah, I agree with Nupur that perhaps you don't see it just as much in their behaviors as you do with a 5-year-old who's throwing tantrums and is becoming very clingy. But the older ones, although you do see a lot of back chatting and slamming of doors, etc., that's happening, but their inner suffering is much greater. And again, what I often suggest to parents and families is to be able to together sit down and brainstorm about what they can do, which will bring back a semblance of structure and rhythm in their lives. So, I often give them a kind of a broad formula that, you pick from 3 broad areas of your lives. One is, of course, as a student or a professional, but if you're a working parent, then what do you do to make your student life fruitful and exciting while you're at home? So there are online classes, and most children in the age group of 7 to 12 often probably sleep off or get distracted, become extremely bored during that time. But how else can they actually supplement that, but in their education? So they might want to watch a video from National Geographic, or even listen to a TED talk, some of the older ones, to be able to fulfill and supplement that.
Thank you, Dr. Sen. I hope all looking into nostalgia and will reduce slamming doors for parents and for children. On that note, we take a break. When we come back, we focus on the issues that a teenager has to go through after the break. Welcome back to Weekending. We are now joined by Avantika Dalmia. She is the chairperson of the Avni Foundation. She's a mother of an almost 13-year-old and a 16-year-old. We also have with us Nupur Dhingra Paiva. She is a child and adolescent psychotherapist, and Dr. Amit Sen, a child and adolescent psychiatrist. Avantika, your kids are not meeting friends or going to school. Take us through the challenges that they are facing.
I think I'll talk about my son who's almost 13 now, and he's basically online all day. So he really misses his sports. He misses going out, and online gaming has become an addiction that I'm very concerned about. And the way they focus on classes on Zoom, I think the concentration is much lower. They find it more difficult to focus and really be in class. So that is something I'm facing as a bit of a concern. Another concern is actually they're not writing so much. So normally one would write answers when you went to school. Right now everything's online, so they're getting very used to typing in queries using different apps. So that's another area that I'm a little concerned about. And with my 16-year-old, she's finding it difficult to focus because she has SAT coming up. She has 11th grade, which has just started. She doesn't even know her teachers as yet. And she finds it a huge concern to focus on studies on Zoom for so long. So sometimes it's 5 hours a day, sometimes it's 7 hours a day. And she's really finding that difficult.
Dr. Sen, we begin with you. What do you think are the solutions to her son's problems and her daughter's problems? I'm sure these are things all teenagers are going through.
Yeah. So obviously, I think Avantika's younger son is 40, and a lot of the outdoorsy, sporty, extroverted kids are finding it even harder to cope with this new reality. So try and get your son off the screen if you could. And again, as we were talking in the last section, how to help them connect with some of the things that are there at home, which we don't usually notice because we just pass them by in the daily rush of life. Screen can sap you of energy and focus and concentration. And I'm not surprised at all that both your children are actually struggling to focus on the academics. But the other questions that I often think about and often encourage families to reflect on are that is it not a time to reflect on the values that we hold? What is success after all? What does education mean? And many of these kids are willing to and are open to discussing this right now in this newfound reality. for instance, is development. What is the meaning of all this, honestly? And what should we learn? Should we learn how to read, write, max a history paper, or should we talk about emotions, about relationships, about domestic violence and abuse that has increased, like it's skyrocketed? Or should we also talk about disaster management, about natural disasters, and even indeed to manage a disaster like we are facing right now? So these are important things to bring to the table and discuss, and that might actually bring their focus back. That might bring back some meaning and give them better perspective. There is another little nugget I wanted to talk about in terms of worries, but that can wait. But I think if I responded to your question right now, yeah.
All right, Nupur, I'll quickly go to you. If you could tell us, her daughter, she said, is 16 years old. Class 11th is a time everybody looks forward to. And plus you have SATs, you don't know the future. There's so much uncertainty. And what our children are obviously disappointed at a subconscious level. What do you advise to parents?
I think actually that's exactly it, Ambika, that it's not just the children or the young people who are facing these disappointments, it's everybody in the home. And I think that it's a very underrated activity, but it's as simple as acknowledging it, like talking about it. So, I mean, these are young people who you can have a meaningful conversation with, with the 16-year-old, to really be upfront about how hard it is to prepare for this SAT, which kind of exists in currently in a bit of a black hole, because there is no light at the end of the tunnel, and this tunnel is really, we don't know how long. And just to actually, that needs acknowledging. And then actually the others in the family are going through something similar, whether it's a business or whether it's a salaried job. What is going to happen is, this question is something that everybody is struggling with. So I think that young people are more reassured when they feel that they are part of something bigger. And that this isn't a personal, internal, secret struggle, it is a shared one. So for the 16-year-old, I would really recommend conversations about reality. And if it sucks, then let's all just acknowledge that it does.
Nupur, very quickly, if you could also throw some light on what advice do you have for parents at this point on how should they deal with their teenagers, because this is the period teenage kids, as it is difficult to manage, and then you have a pandemic on top of that. What advice do you have for parents so that they don't have troubles for the rest of their life which stem from this particular time?
Okay, that's a big one. What I'm hearing from parents I am talking to these days is that parents tend to find themselves get locked into a pattern of giving a lot of instructions and asking questions like, have you done your homework? Have you attended that class? Did you eat your lunch on time? And things like that. So they're finding, parents are confessing really, that they are noticing that their interaction with their teens has actually become quite functional and quite instruction based. And what I've been telling them is, well, pull back on that. Because if you've got a 16-year-old and you're looking at in 2.5 years time that they are going to be moving out of home, theoretically speaking, and going to study elsewhere, then you're already looking at the run-up to that process. So can you start to engage with them through where they can get that you have affection and love for them, and that you are helping them build capacity for being able to look out for themselves. So let's not turn into the checklist holder for our teenagers, and to leave them with the responsibility and the consequences of some of this stuff, but to hold the parental place, which is the stuff they can't get from anywhere else, which is about affection, which is about listening, which is about even arguing in a safe way. Because honestly, your teenager can only argue safely with you, because at the end of that, the two of you are still in a close, affectionate relationship.
Right.
Ambika,
Avantika, do you have any question or any point?
I actually wanted to say, it's 6 months into the pandemic. So with the kids, you've already done all the TT, cricket, baking, stories, family time. We have almost, I have my in-laws, so they are almost 3 generations in our home. But how long? The kids have been very good about it. They've never complained. But there's a hope, and they don't know when this is going to end. Like, I've never seen my kids being so keen to just go for a drive, just step out.
Yeah.
They've taken to cycling, they've taken to all the kind of workouts. But beyond a point, what next? How much can you really entertain them? 6 months we have.
Absolutely. And I think that that's a really valid point, that I think it's time to, alongside hope, yes, or, when, but can we just acknowledge how sad everybody feels and how fed up everybody feels right now? And I think that just noticing that the fact that they have taken to cycling and looking forward to a short drive, that they've started to value simpler things, but that underneath that there's grief about so much that is uncertain and so much that has been lost. So it is actually really hard to cling on to hope endlessly. You're absolutely right, and they have been really good about it. And there's nothing wrong with a little bit of a sulk as well.
All right. Thank you so much. I would love to discuss this topic for another hour. Unfortunately, we have only a half-hour show. Avantika, thank you so much. Dr. Sen, Nupur, thank you so much for joining us and your insights. On that note, it's time to say goodbye. Hope you jotted down a few points. Happy parenting. See you again next week.